Sue had used her pocket money to buy them orange sodas together and candy. She'd stuck her neck out when Nancy got beaten up in school because she was too damned weird. The kid who liked to paint and dance around in the leaves on the way home from school. Hell, if it hadn't been for Sue, Nancy would never have gone and gotten that degree, would she? She was going straight in the good way, Sue's big sister. She was always so cautious, and the things she liked didn't even make sense. But it was impossible to resist the way those eyes lit up when she talked about color and brushstrokes. She'd been Sue's big sister, for Christ's sakes. Sue had done everything for her, and now she couldn't even give a little bit back. She had to call in Bill. She looked at the phone and bit her lip. Could she trust him? Bill had a tendency to go overboard. He only had 2 settings, do nothing and full on. She needed him, though. Nancy wasn't going to talk to Sue, and she had to scare her just a little bit. Just a little bit. Just a bit, before reminding her that they'd been sisters once. And then the phone rang. Sue looked over at it, looked at the number on the screen, and looked over at the clock. 4 a.m. She answered with a frown. I was just going to call you. Chapter 2. Sam Arbichaut took a sip of his coffee, never taking his eyes off the road ahead. The suspect, target, he reminded himself, not suspect, was in a nice new sedan 2 cars ahead. It was before 6 a.m., but the roads of suburban Portland already had enough cars on them to hide Sam as he tailed the suspect. Target, he reminded himself again. He wasn't on the police force anymore, and this wasn't a criminal case. He was a private investigator now, getting involved in all manner of family and business disputes. In this case, it was insurance fraud. A worker at a local hardware store had fallen off a rickety old ladder, and now he couldn't work. Of course, he'd fallen in a part of the store where no one else could see or hear him. And he'd left a paper trail documenting his complaints about the ladder. And he'd promptly gotten all of the exact correct forms filled out for workers' comp. The store owner swore to Sam that he'd never seen that ladder before in his life, that the reason he hadn't fixed the ladders was that the ladders he had were perfectly stable. He didn't have the money for a workers' comp payout and a new employee in the meantime, he said, and this employee had never seemed on the level to him. No one believed him, but Sam did, didn't he? Sam gave him the standard spiel. It didn't matter what he believed. In fact, he was paid to believe nothing. You're hiring me to find out the truth, Mr. Franks. I try to have no preconceived ideas about everything. It was the type of speech that gave clients a jolt, and then reeled them right in. First, they were offended that Sam didn't believe them out of hand, and then they switched to telling themselves that this was a good thing, that Sam was incorruptible, and that they, too, only cared about the truth. Of course, most of them sang a different tune if Sam's investigations turned up nothing, but he was prepared for that. He liked the speech he gave because it was true. He really did want to get to the bottom of things, and he wasn't prepared to give incriminating evidence when it wouldn't be warranted. When he gave information to a client, he believed in it, wholeheartedly. In this case, he had begun to believe that his client was right, and the employee wasn't disabled at all. Everything was just a bit too perfect, from the forms he'd filed to the exact injury he'd gotten, to the way he always went out using his crutches. Sam had yet to meet a young man who wouldn't try to push himself past the limits of his injury, even if it were just to bring a bag of trash to the dumpster. This young man was patient, aware that he might be watched. Sam, however, was even more patient, and he was pretty sure he'd just hit pay dirt. They were driving far out of the target's neighborhood at a very early hour. If the target was about to screw up, this would be the time. And screw up he did. He picked street parking and swung himself energetically out of the car, no limp to slow him down. He grabbed a bag out of the car. Sam parked a few cars away, couldn't see what, and set off down the sidewalk. Tailing him, dawdling, making sure to appear absorbed in his smartphone,